Welcome to Spinning Back Clique Retweet here at MMA Junkie. We take a spin through the biggest headlines in the sport of mixed martial arts. This week, we've got gorgeous George Garcia, Nolan King, and Matt Wells all here. So let's just jump into it. Guys, Kamaru Usman and Nate Diaz ended up in one of the most unexpected Twitter beefs in recent memory. And it ended with the UFC welterweight champ seemingly open to Diaz challenging for his belt. Now, guys, Nate is an absolute star in the sport. There's no doubt about it. But can he actually challenge for a title right now? Or would this be just an absolutely terrible look for the sport? Let's put 4 minutes on the clock. Matt, get us started.
This would be terrible. This would absolutely be terrible. Nate Diaz hasn't looked like a championship quality fighter outside of landing one punch at the very end of a fight where he got dominated in. And people are just going to use that one moment to propel him into his next big payday. Because that's, at the end of the day, people just want to see Nate Diaz go out there, rock his opponent, and get the crowd all riled up, slap his opponent around a couple of times. But at the end of the day, is he a championship caliber level fighter at this point right now? No, he's not. He's been getting beaten pillar to post. And for Kamaru Usman to be that potential next opponent, the guy who just absolutely leveled Jorge Masvidal, come on, man. No, this is not the one. And I know Usman did that just because he knew a lot of people would get those reactions on Twitter, and it worked. But at the end of the day, we don't need to be talking about Nate Diaz in a title fight anytime soon, especially at this point for Kamaru, when he just had a rematch against Masvidal that really wasn't warranted either, in my opinion. I mean, Masvidal didn't do anything after he lost the first one. So let's get Kamaru a legit title fight, please, and it not be another Nate Diaz sort of thing.
Yeah, Usman is fighting at such a high level right now. I think that'd be a really tough matchup for Diaz, if I'm just being honest with you. But, I mean, Nolan, what do you think? I mean, does sanctity of titles mean anything? Are we worried about what the UFC belt really means when we're saying this is a bad look? I mean, people would definitely pay $50 for it, right? So is it out of the realm of possibility, or is it still just a silly idea?
I mean, I hope so at this point. I never rule anything out with the UFC. We know that money talks. We know having big names at the top of the card, even when title fights kind of sort of don't make sense, is usually is sometimes their MO. But for this man, I think that you're even lengthening the leash even longer than it's ever been before. I mean, for a guy like Nate Diaz, who has won one fight since 2016, he has 1-3 in his last performances, to go in there with a guy who's on the trajectory to become the greatest welterweight of all time, when there's a Colby Covington rematch right around the corner that you can make right now, please, UFC, do not do this. I swear, I get Nate, I get the draw. I respect Usman for doing the call out like he did. I respect the banter. I know what everybody involved is trying to do. But I think you can only fool the fans so many times before those money fights, those big fights just become another, a drill at that point. Nate Diaz is fun to watch, but he's going to go in there and get smoked again. You got to rebuild him a little bit. I think you can only fool people so many times with kind of uneven matchmaking with big names, just because they're big names, before people start to get disinterested. So to me, Usman versus Covington is the fight to make. It was one of the best fights of 2019. It's a fight that Colby's earned, a rematch that he's earned. No reason to go in any other direction but that one.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Maybe if there were no fights on the table to make right now, then you could go to it because it's fun. But there is a fight to make with Covington. And plus, what would poor Leon Edwards say? Come on now. George, I know you like a freak show fight every now and then, though. You like to have a little fun with it. So can you justify this one, or are we just agreeing this is out of the realm of possibility right now?
It's not out of the realm of possibility because the UFC's done this type of stuff before. But this is a deep division. And like you guys said, Covington and Edwards for sure have earned their title shots. They both fought the guy, at different occasions, but I'd still love to see it again. But yeah, it's just not a good look for a promotion that boasts having the best fighters, especially deep divisions in lightweight, welterweight, featherweight. A guy coming off 2 losses, I don't understand it. The platform that the UFC has, though, and they're obviously a business, is that if they were to make it, we'd all go nuts on fight week. And when both of those guys are about to fight, we'd all go nuts then, and that's why usually they have an opportunity to always prove themselves right, because if the fight's great, Dana White will tell us, I told you so. But no, I think even he knows it's not the route to go. We got contenders, Covington and Edwards.
Such a terrible idea. Matt almost didn't even turn his microphone on to debate it, But we'd all tune in to watch it. I'm telling you, we'd all tune in to watch it. Guys, the PFL wrapped up its regular season this past weekend. A couple of 2-time champions didn't even make the playoffs this time around. Ditto for a couple of high-profile additions. You have Fabricio Verdum, Anthony Pettis. They're done for the year. That said, there were some exciting moments along the way with some fighters needing specific results to get in. It's always kind of interesting to see how that plays out. You got to finish it in the first round or what have you. So with it all said and done and us looking towards the playoffs, let's give the regular season a grade. 4 minutes on the clock. Nolan, tell us what you think of the season this year.
I think it's had its ups and downs, its pluses and minuses, like every other of their seasons. I'd give it a B-, I'd say. To me, obviously, I think when you bring in some big names, I think the promotion would at least like to get a little bit of mileage out of them. Having Anthony Pettis lose both of his fights, Fabricio Verdum only competing once in very controversial fashion, and ended up without a win and only competing once. So those type of things I think hurt the promotion. I mean, you got Lance Palmer, who was one of their more promotable names. He's not even in the playoffs, so things could have gone better in regards to that, but I think overall, I mean, the fights themselves were very good. I think there was a lot of action. There was a lot of violence, and even between some of the smaller names that people don't know, names that might be foreign to most fight fans. I think that there were a lot of fun fights. There were a lot of highlights. I think their social media presence was very good. I mean, I was at Bellator covering on Friday, and clearly the PFL was doing a better job than them on social media and getting people to talk. So I think those names, we talked about this last week, I think those names, the big names, even if they lose, they bring in eyeballs, fans start to follow, fans start to get involved. And when you have that season format, each fight is a part of a bigger storyline. So I give them a B-. There's still room to improve, but I think overall they made some good adjustments from their last season, and the talent pool is pretty decent and has performed as much.
Yeah, they're still developing the concept a little bit, right? I mean, they're still kind of getting better at it each time they're out there, and they have done a fantastic job with their social media engagement. And I guess you could bring those big names back for like non-playoff fights if you wanted to, although maybe that would destroy the sanctity of this season. I don't know. George, Nolan went with B-. What do you think?
B+ for me. I really love that they stepped up the free agent signings. They signed a lot of North American-based talent. They signed former champions like Verdum and Pettis have been mentioned. Shoeface, Cesar Ferreira, a few of those guys made it to the playoffs. They brought in Clarissa Shields. I think that was pretty big. Will she be able to overlap by the time maybe Kayla Harrison is done there? I don't know, but either way, it was a big night for them. So the signings did great. They protected their fighters, in these extensive 17 and 10-day bubbles that they had. But I guess one thing that I wish they were a little bit more consistent is, you have ESPN Plus and ESPN2, and one night on ESPN, which is great, by the way. But that consistency, you want that along with pick a night, Thursday or Friday. If we can get some of that solidified, now we're into the A- range, maybe the A range, if one of those two big names pays off. But either way, a strong B+ for me.
I'm going to be honest with you, George. I think people got to stop mentioning Clarissa Shields and Kayla Harrison together. I'm just being honest. I don't think they're going to overlap very much. But still, it was a great thing to bring her in and to see it happen. So that's outside of the season stuff, too. Matt, what do you think? We got a B-, we got a B+. I guess you can go right in the middle with a regular B. You can go A, you can go C. What do you think? Better, worse? What did you think of the PFL season this year?
I mean, I'm going to go with an FPR rating of 83.2, whatever the hell that rating even means. I assume that's somewhere in the B range. So we'll go with that. There's a lot of interesting things to like from this season, man. Like we said, the big names have lost. That creates intrigue for me, at least. You have interesting matchups on the horizon. Kayla Harrison, Larissa Pachenko in that rematch. Both of them look on fire right now. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see how it plays out. I'm not necessarily glad that the big names lost, but it's cool to see them have some adversity in other promotions. Everybody thought Anthony Pettis was just going to come over, steamroll his way into the playoffs. Nah, he left with 0 points. So a lot of things have really played out in an interesting fashion. I just like the playoff format as it stands in general, with the exception of when you get Kayla Harrison fighting a Cindy Dandois when in a fight that really doesn't matter for her. She already had a playoff spot locked up before she even entered the cage. So do we really need to have these fights where it's like an extreme mismatch where everybody knows what's going to happen and somebody could really get hurt? That's the only thing that kind of sours me off a little bit. So maybe knock a few more points off the FPR for that.
Subtle dig at the FPR that nobody understands. Although if you get a first round knockout, you're 100. I think that's the way it works. That's the only part we do know. But I like what you said there about, the losses kind of do make it a little bit more interesting. If everybody just came in and dominated, what's the point of having it? So I dig it. Well, guys, over in Bellator, they made a huge announcement this weekend revealing that Fedor Emelianenko will return in October, and he'll be competing in his native Russia. So we've got a date, we got a location, but we need an opponent. So tell me, Who should Fedor Emelianenko fight next? 4 minutes on the clock. George, get us started.
Tons of names available, but I know that I commit too many fouls in that regard. So I'm going to get one. I think my prime one is Matt Mitrione. And here's the reason for one. I mean, a fighter can usually get up, even at 44, for a fight that they lost. So there's a chance to get one back. Mitrione's 42, so similar in age. You can't say, oh, the young guy got me or anything like that. Age was a factor. And Mitrione can sell it, guys. Mitrione's a good talker. I think good enough to keep that level of respect that who doesn't have for Fedor at this point. But at the same time, maybe just get everybody, pumped up for fight night. Plus, look, I'm not going to lie. Rocky IV, USA versus Russia, you always got to think about that, right? So it's going to happen right around the time, late October, when it's getting cold. I'd love to see both of those guys doing some last-minute training in the snow, chopping wood, whatever it takes. But no, I really think this would be a great fight for both guys. And I think, look, let's be honest here. They both stand, and somebody would get KO'd. So can't beat that.
Finally got George picking just one name when asked to. That's amazing. Hey, I hadn't really thought about the idea of helping sell it, but he would definitely do that. I hadn't really thought about that angle when thinking names. Matt, what's the name you go with? Is there a matchup that makes the most sense to you right now?
I'm sticking with the rematch idea here, but I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go with one that kind of knocked off the chinks in the armor, that showed chinks in the armor of Fedor. Let's go all the way back to 2010. Let's bring back Fabricio Verdum, the Strike Force fight that caught everybody's eye when Fabricio tapped him out of nowhere. Amazing moment. I say run it back. Both guys are obviously not at the same level of fighter they were then, but it would just be an interesting fight to go ahead and run back with the history there. The moment that was, can Fedor get that one back? Can Fabricio tap him again? Who knows what would happen, but I think that would be a good way to go just because of the storyline that's already there between those two. I mean, at the end of the day, there really are a lot of good options. I mean, you put Fedor on a card against pretty much anybody, people are going to tune in to see it just because of Fedor's legacy in this sport. So there's really no wrong answer here. But for me, if you want me to put pen to paper to a fight, it's bring in Fabricio Verdum. And according to you, John, PFL is open to make that happen. So that's the one I'm going to go with.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I heard that they would be willing to let that happen. It kind of excited me. My lasting memory from that night is Fedor sitting at the dais to talk to us afterwards, and Fabricio and his team out there in the hallway cheering and yelling and singing. I know Fedor heard it too. I'm sure he remembers that moment. Wouldn't mind running that back. So that is an intriguing one. Nolan, how about you? You got another name, or do one of those make the most sense to you?
Well, I'll preface this by saying I think George and Matt both were onto something there, because from what I've heard, Mohegan Sun and just kind of being around Bellator, is that when Fedor says, oh, I'll talk to Bellator, let them figure it out, he's pretty open to a lot of different options, but he likes the idea of fighting somebody that he has history with. And so obviously Verdum and Mitrione are two guys that he could get one back from. But another name he has history with that he was supposed to fight and it never happened was Josh Barnett, somebody that's under contract with Bellator. His current status is a little unknown. There's a little cloudiness concerning some positive drug tests that occurred, I believe, last year or late 2019. I'm kind of, my timeline's a little fuzzy there. But to me, that's a fight that makes a lot of sense. Two guys that are older, two guys that are kind of in that legend field. I believe that they're the same age. Their activity levels are kind of similar. I know Josh hasn't fought for a few years, but to me, that's the type of matchup he gets. And I'm glad nobody said Junior Dos Santos or Fabricio, or Alistair Overeem here, because I'd like to see him fight another legend, somebody that isn't, one fight removed from a top 10 UFC matchup. I want to see somebody that's maybe a little bit over the hill, somebody that's not going to come in as a heavy favorite, and somebody that's got kind of that legend status, like I said.
I like that idea. Kind of the fight that never happened, man. Put that one together. And you know what? I got a sneaking suspicion the Russian Athletic Commission might be able to make some things happen over there. You know what I'm saying? Well, guys, the sport's biggest promotions are taking this weekend off, but don't forget CFFC. But just as we've reached the halfway point of the year, in your mind, what's the biggest story so far? It's been a crazy one. Give us the biggest story of 2021 so far. We'll put 4 minutes on the clock. Matt, get us started.
Well, I think the biggest story of the year so far is fairly obvious, and considering what happened in 2020 with the global pandemic that shut everything down, removed fans from the arenas, and now we're back. UFC 261 being the first event for the UFC that had a packed arena for a pay-per-view event, and it just feels so much more special when the arena is packed, when big fights are on the line. I mean, go back to the very first fight on that card. The very first fight, fans were going bananas, and both of those fighters knew it. They felt it, and they went bananas in the cage too. So having the fans back in the arena is great. And obviously, yeah, we get the Ric Flair woos from time to time. We get, other sort of things going on where fans just boo action that they really shouldn't be booing. That's just an unfortunate byproduct from time to time. But overwhelmingly, when it comes to the main event time, and you have people on their stands, or in the stands, not sitting down, everybody's on their feet. It's just a special atmosphere, especially if you're there in the arena. It's just something that you really can't recreate. And yeah, there's something special about having that quiet arena as well, like at the UFC Apex, where you can hear everything, you can hear the coaches, but big fights deserve big crowds, and I'm glad that that's back.
Yeah, it's kind of tough for there to be a bigger story, right? I mean, COVID has been the story of our entire world, so it's certainly been our sport as well. And you're so right, man. Being fans back in the building has been amazing. So I guess prefacing that, it's kind of a loaded question that's the biggest story in the whole world. Nolan, is there anything else that stood out to you, or is that just so big we can't even talk about anything else?
No, I mean, Matt hit it on the head. I think that there is really only one right answer here, but for the sake of conversation, I'll bring up something maybe that could be like a 1B or a number 2 in the list, which is this whole MMA versus boxing thing. And I know people kind of hate that we cover it, and I know, I get it. But at the same time, it is a big story, and especially considering that MMA fighters have kind of, involved themselves in it. This isn't just Jake Paul versus some YouTube guy that he's fighting anymore. This is MMA fighters calling out YouTube stars. We've got retired superstars like Anderson Silva going to boxing for exhibition matches. And it's got a whole lot of storylines that are intertwined beyond matchmaking. Fighter pay is something that's come up. I mean, we've seen Francis Ngannou, I believe, comment on it. John Jones comment on it. A lot of fighters are taking notice, like, why are these boxing fighters, why are these YouTube guys that aren't even really boxers, why are they getting paid so much? Why is Ben Askren making this much, the most that he's ever made for a fight, to go out there and get knocked out in a minute while he's out of shape? So for me, I think it is a big story, whether people like it or not, because I think it's opening up a lot of fighters' eyes into the fighter pay system and how MMA could be better. And some of them are even advocating for themselves, which is something that we haven't necessarily seen in the past. So when you're attracting the attention of all the big stars in this manner, like him or not, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, whoever Paul, whatever YouTube star you want to talk about, they have sparked a conversation here, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think that we're in for it. I think this is going to be something that even progresses further in the next couple of years.
That's at MMA_Kings for all of your complaints. That's why we're covering the Paul brothers. But you're absolutely right. It's too big of a story to ignore. It really has become a central part of the sport. George, what about you? Anything else stand out to you so far in 2021?
Man, it's got to be that piece in the Libre that Hector Lombard threw after winning that title. Don't get in my man's face after he wins a title. No, I'm just kidding. Look, as much as I love the violent aspect of the sport, I want to see it during a competition. And this has been a violent 6 months, guys. Jamal Hill's arm, Jacare, Murata last weekend, the leg break of Chris Weidman. Hell, John and CM Punk almost had a finger land in their lap at CFFC. For me, it's got to be the violence. It's more than I remember after 6 months. So that would be my answer. But the fans, I love the fans.
What the fans and the violence. That's what it's all about. Yeah, it is. It has been a great year for fights, and I think the fans being back in the building probably has something to do for some of those, because there have been some very exciting atmospheres at those UFC pay-per-view events. Well, guys, like I said, it's a holiday weekend, so hopefully everybody enjoys it. But next weekend, the big one, Conor McGregor is back, the trilogy. We'll be talking some UFC 264, among other things, and we'll cover it all right here on Spinning Back Clique.